Going on now, every Saturday, 7 a.m. till noon, rain or shine at Illinois and Vine, it's Urbana Market at the Square. Find Urbana Market on Facebook or urbanamarket.org.
Since 1955, the University of Illinois Police Training Institute has been a leader in law enforcement training, standing out as one of the largest and longest-running academies in the United States. Operating on campus, PTI has trained tens of thousands of officers using research-based techniques and over 100 hours of scenario-based training focused on de-escalation and communication. Dedicated to integrity, respect, and service, PTI is shaping the future of policing. Learn more on Facebook, Instagram, or visit pti.illinois.edu.
You're listening to WSJK ESPN 93.5 Tuscola, Champaign-Urbana, your home for the St. Louis Cardinals.
The ads show the faces of Israeli Americans held hostage in Gaza and the slogan, "Bring them home." Fox News has obtained emails in which the Chicago Department of Aviation denied the ad buy, citing their advertising guidelines that prohibit profanity and violence, as well as disparagement.
Fox's Mike Tobin in Chicago. Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance says the American people deserve as many debates as possible.
Not only does Vance accept the CBS debate on October 1st, he writes, "I accept the CNN debate on September 18th as well," telling Democratic VP candidate Tim Walz that he looks forward to seeing him at both.
Fox's Jeff Benasso. Walz has agreed to one debate and Harris 2 debates, though that includes one proposed before she was the nominee. A surge in retail sales revs up stocks. The Dow up 555 points at the bell. America is listening to Fox News.
You hear more and more about identity theft in the news every day. That's because so much of your personal info is out of your control, like your insurance provider that has your social security number and your favorite retailer that has your payment details. If they get breached, your information's vulnerable. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity's stolen, they'll fix it guaranteed or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code PLAY at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Hey, checking in?
This is not just your flu shot appointment at Walgreens.
Yes. Yeah. Uh-huh.
This is getting your entire family vaccinated in one trip.
Hey, Mom.
And a snack on the way out. Get flu shots for everyone in your family. Together. Schedule appointments online today. This is wellness made easy. Walgreens.
Vaccine subject to availability and for ages 3+. State and health-related restrictions may apply.
5 people face multiple charges in connection with the death of actor Matthew Perry, who died of an accidental ketamine overdose last October. 2 of the suspects are doctors. Another was Perry's assistant, who prosecutors say injected him with ketamine on the day he died.
They knew what they were doing was wrong. They knew what they were doing was risking great danger to Mr. Perry, but they did it anyway. In the end, these defendants were more interested in profiting off Mr. Perry than caring for his well-being.
U.S. Attorney Martin Estrada says after Perry's death, the defendants tried to cover up their role, and 2 have already pleaded guilty. One of the doctors is accused of falsifying documents. Other charges include drug and conspiracy counts. A man in Florida is accused of threatening to blow up businesses he believed were supporting Israel in its war with Hamas.
The Justice Department says Hashem Nayan targeted Orlando area businesses he saw as Israeli supporters with threats to explode devices. Coffee shops, fast food restaurants, and a power station were among the places he allegedly threatened. The native of Jordan sent letters addressing the U.S. government, which contained his demands. The suspect was arrested last month after one such letter was sent to a propane gas distribution business. Nayan appeared in court this week and was ordered held for threatening to use explosives and attacking an energy facility. A conviction carries up to 60 years. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
A Detroit judge who ordered a teenager into handcuffs and jail clothes for falling asleep during a field trip to court is now off the bench temporarily. The court's chief judge says he'll have necessary training to address the underlying issues that contributed to that incident. Recapping stocks, the Dow up more than 500 points, now more than recovered from the recent plunge. And Lisa Brady, Fox News.
Hey, what's up? It's The Drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Derek Piper, along with me, guest co-host Joey Wagner from IlliniInquirer.com, intern Jimmy Sebeski as well. No Lon, no Kyle. We'll have Lon back tomorrow. Kyle on a nice little vacation before school starts here, but a perfect time to get Joey Wagner in. He's been following Illini football training camp very, very closely. They're day in and day out for media availabilities. 2 weeks from the opener, Joey. How you doing as we are right around the corner from this thing getting hot and heavy?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm ready to see football. I feel like we've exhausted every possible storyline we can exhaust without seeing a football game. I think we know most of the two deep. We know the health updates, which all seem pretty good for the most part outside of Cole Russ, the obvious. It's time to just get to some games, Derek. It's been off-season anymore is pretty much round the clock, round the year, so – we've been talking about the same thing or a lot of the same things for 5 months, 6 months now.
I know Brett doesn't allow media, and we know the reasoning. We've talked about it enough to where we're not having the sit down again and let's try to convince Bielema to change the approach on this. He's not going to. I think Bob Asmussen asked him at the beginning of camp, hey, do you have any inkling or reasoning to open it up to media a little bit more, do a little bit more NFL style? And he just flat out was like, no.
No, I'm good.
So
he does have a few open practices here and there. But
so what have you actually been able to see?
Field goals.
Okay.
Field goals and
how do the field goals look? Are they going in?
David Alano looks pretty good. I would expect him to be the starting kicker if that's
all right.
Big breaking news to anybody out there. We had one open practice where it was more like fit and fire, so you kind of run through what you want to do, but it's no hitting. They weren't in pads. But it did give us some two deep ideas, thoughts, kind of solidified a lot of what we thought going into it. And it sounds like Saturday will be open, and we might see a forward pass.
Oh my goodness!
See the ball thrown around a little bit there. So there is value to what we do see in terms of
for sure.
In terms of how the depth chart looks, but you'd like to see how the guys look, right? You'd like to see some movement, some one-on-ones, a little bit more on that front.
I do want to pick your brain throughout the show on just your thoughts going into this season. Allow the text line, 217-359-2255 on the Max Twin City Recycling text line to offer up some questions to Joey as he gives his expectations for this upcoming season. Anything that has stuck out regarding what Brett Bielema has said, what the coordinators, what the players themselves have offered up to him. So let's open that thing up and get that rolling as we go along. We will play some Brett Bielema for you before today's show is done. Joey, fresh off today's availability, getting a chance to talk to Brett. Before we get to that, anything that stood out there, Joey, as far as what Brett shared, and how much do you look to get out of a sit-down like that when you have a scrum with a coach, knowing that they're going to hide like scheme stuff and maybe there's even a good amount of coach speak in there. How much do you expect to get out of things like that, and was there anything notable today?
Brett, in some of those, especially when it comes to this time of the year with Ross, he was pretty forthcoming about, okay, here's who was running with the ones at wide receiver. It was Pat Bryant, Zachary Franklin, Malik Elzy, Kenari Wilcher, Alex Kapka-Jones, Colin Dixon, that group. You can take that out. He said Luke Altmaier was 21 of 25 in last night's scrimmage passing.
Take that.
That sounds like it does sound like, I know he wasn't voted a team captain today, and the internet is frustrated by that. But there has been growth in his leadership.
It's better than the Cade McNamara. What was that, 8 for 24 or something like that?
That was a struggle
for
Cade McNamara, yes. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if Luke Altmaier is a captain or not. If he's going 21 of 25 and leading this offense up and down the field, I think people will be just fine with that. So there was that out of that. Injury-wise, it seems like Illinois is fine. He expects center Josh Kreutz, who's been dealing with the knee issue, to hopefully be back next week. James Kreutz, his brother, the linebacker, is cleared. Matt Bailey has got some maintenance. There's been a couple open windows that he wasn't dressed, and the next day he was. It sounds like it's a maintenance program. Just kind of getting to the point where it's like, okay, 2 weeks, just get to the season. Get to the season. Keep your guys healthy. And outside of Cole Rusk, Mason Moragan, a reserve outside linebacker, kind of a depth guy, they seem pretty healthy going into, as of right now, going into Eastern Illinois. So, at this point in camp, you kind of know what you're going to know. You talk to pretty much everybody between media days and availabilities. Now it's just, hey, you still healthy? Okay, great. And then you kind of, I guess just really for stuff like this, get quotes for stories you're working on, right? And try to think of stuff you maybe haven't asked for a month.
I have gone into today's show wanting to ask you about the impact of Cole Rusk's injury, but you mentioned the captains. that was released on social media for those that have probably stumbled upon it via the Illini football Twitter account. You've got Tanner Arkin, Pat Bryant, Seth Coleman, Josh Kreutz, Dylan Rosiak, and Miles Scott. Any surprises? Are you surprised that Luke's not on there? I know you kind of already gave your answer as far as it potentially not being a big deal. I mean, his play will deem whether it's a success or failure this year, and I think he'll have leadership qualities if he's the man in the huddle, which is the full expectation throughout the rest of the season. Any snubs or any surprises in terms of that group, in your opinion?
Not really. Josh Kreutz is a lock. Pat Bryant was a lock. Miles Scott, Dylan Rosiak, those two were locks. Seth Coleman, obviously, he's been around for a while. He's one of their better players. That makes sense. Tanner Arkin was a little bit of a surprise, not because I think he's undeserving. He's a transfer. He's a second year in the program from Colorado State. Seems like just the way he goes about his job, very similar to Tip Ryman's approach. I'm not saying skill set, but approach has gotten a lot of respect inside of that locker room. Luke Altmaier, Brett Bielema said, was fourth in voting offensively. They vote for the top three. The top three are captains, so it's not like he was last, right? And he voted for himself. And, you know, it was brought up to me, just kind of talking around a little bit. Casey Washington wasn't a team captain last season. I challenge anybody to talk to players from last year's roster, especially offensively, and ask that Casey Washington had, you know, what his voice was. He was prominent and it was loud, and he wasn't a captain. I'm not trying to diminish the role of captains, but I still think you can be a leader. You can still have those qualities without going out for the coin toss or without having, you know, the, hey, you know, it's a loss, send the captains out to media type deal. Like there's a lot more you can do, just even if you don't have that captain patch, or it's not really a patch, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot of wonder about what Luke Altmaier is going to look like following getting benched at the end of the year. Of course, injury factored into that. Having just the fact that we haven't seen him in a while. Outside of, you mentioned the 21 for 25, you've got a chance to talk to him. I know he came off impressive. We played the audio from his availability, I think, a few weeks ago, and seemed like, you know, he really harped on the mindset, maturity and growth, and just coming out of the other side of that in a good place. John Paddock played really good football, and I thought when we had him on during the week, every week, even in the tough times when it was probably something he didn't want to do, is answer the phone and talk to us about, hey, you're not going to play, or hey, they're going to make this decision, and started to seem writing on the wall that it was going to be John Paddock. But what have you heard, whether talking to players about how he's looked, talking to Luke himself, Barry Lunney, what's kind of been your takeaway from the last few weeks based on just what you've been able to glean from Luke Altmaier's feedback?
Yeah, I do think that he has taken a step in leadership. He's not Art Sikowski, who's every time we talk to the guy, he's clapping and screaming and yelling. That's talking to us, right? Like, he's not that. He's not Tommy DeVito, who is in like the 99th percentile personality-wise, right? But he has taken steps. It sounds like a very intentional leader, I guess, is what we've heard in terms of building those relationships with guys. And again, at the end of the day, if you're throwing touchdown passes, if you're moving the offense, I don't know if anyone cares if you're screaming at the top of your lungs, right? If you're orchestrating an offense that's winning football games, that matters. He knew what he needed to clean up. He knew he needed to get the ball out quicker. Some of those sacks, there were a lot of sacks last year. I think it was the second most in the Big Ten. Some of those fell at the hands of Luke Altmaier. He needed to be more decisive, and obviously the offensive line early on struggled mightily. But I think he would tell you, he has said he needs to get rid of it. He needs to be more decisive, and I just think it's the first time in his college career he's not been in a quote-unquote quarterback battle, right? Like, they kind of had one last year early on with Paddock, but I mean, I don't know why you would have believed that. It wasn't a battle, right? Ultimately, Paddock did end up starting late in the season, but that was Luke Altmaier's job, and it was coach speak to get through that part of training camp. Ole Miss, there were a lot of quarterback battles. There were 2 quarterback battles for him there, and he came out at the wrong side of those. So I think there's value in just knowing that, hey, I'm the starting quarterback. He has 9 games under his belt now. There's a lot of value to that. And if you watch the middle 6 games of last season, he had a really slow start. This is really slow. The interceptions against Penn State were a low point. Kansas was a struggle. Toledo wasn't very smooth. And then the benching for the final 3, those 6 games in the middle were a really good stretch of quarterback play. And if Tommy DeVito didn't have 2022, that would have been one of the better stretches of 6 games in recent memory. So I think I've said this on here, I just feel like his season gets reduced to 6 games at the beginning, or 3 at the beginning, 3 at the end, and those middle 6 games where he was a good quarterback, especially by Illinois football standards, which until Tommy DeVito came rolling along, didn't have recent history of successful quarterback play, that was there, and that experience was valuable. So I think there's an expectation, especially with the weapons he has around him, with Zachary Franklin, with Pat Bryant, Malik Elzy, Kenari Wilcher, Caden Fagan, an offensive line that I think is going to be better. I think there is the expectation that he will take another step in his second year, and with the returning coordinator and just the comfort of being in one place for a little bit of time here and knowing he's a starter.
A lot of people excited, obviously, about Zachary Franklin, and his resume would speak to that, especially when he was with Barry Lunny Jr. at UTSA. I think between his final 2 seasons there, we're talking about like 2,700 yards through the air and 20 to 25 touchdowns. Of course, you go to the Big Ten, you're going to face potentially some heightened competition, especially in some games. So, the tougher ones on Illinois' schedule. Pat Bryant, we've seen him be very serviceable, if not good, as a top one or two.
He's quietly got 77 receptions for 1,000 yards in the last 2 seasons with 9 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Like, right, again, you don't think about it because it's Casey Washington had that close this season. Isaiah Williams was 1,000 yards, first team All Big Ten. I think he was flirting with that in 2022. You don't think about it as much because those guys were there, right? And you had Chase Brown, but Pat Bryant, sneaky, been pretty consistent here for the last 2 seasons.
Especially if he's going to be your number 2 receiver. If Zachary plays at the heightened end of who he can be, I would imagine that Pat's a good number 2, wide out. And beyond that, though, what do you think? We toss around Malik Elzy's name, and it's attached to it being a high-profile recruit. But what do you expect out of him, or what should we know about him as a player? How close do you think he is? I know, again, you haven't seen training camp, and it'd be different if you were getting a chance to watch him every day. But how close do you think he is to being someone that makes a reasonable impact? And then Kenari Wilcher is somebody that maybe people are less familiar with. What would he bring to the table if he's regularly getting snaps?
Yeah, I think Malik Elzy, he had some inconsistency we saw in the spring game with his hands. But I think there's packages you'll see him, Pat Bryant, and Zachary Franklin in the slot together on the field. I think those might be your 3. I think those are your 3 best wide receivers, and they'll find a way to get those 3 out there together. Malik Elzy's going to play, and if he plays, I think he's going to have an impact. What is that? I don't know, because the addition of Zachary Franklin allows Malik Elzy to kind of grow up at a pace, or grow up's probably not even the right word, but develop at a pace that's more comfortable than, hey, you're a sophomore, you need to be a number 2 wide receiver in the Big Ten today, and there's not a lot of wiggle room here, right? Like that's a lot to put on someone even as talented as Malik Elzy is. So that helps, and I think he's played well enough. I think he's had a good fall camp that he's going to be in that mix. And Kenari Wilcher would be a guy who, if the season started today, and it'd probably be the same at Eastern, I think the receivers would be Bryant, Franklin, and probably Wilcher in the slot. He's a very, very fast guy, the kind of speed that really isn't in that wide receiver room. He's not quite maybe as shifty as Isaiah Williams, but he's got that dynamic. Very few people are as shifty as Isaiah Williams.
I would say, yeah.
By the way. But that speed dynamic gives Illinois something different. And then I think you'll see guys like your Hank Beatty's, your Malik Elzy's, Alex Kapka-Jones, Colin Dixon's as kind of some of those rotational guys. I did want to point out, someone said, point out the drops by Pat Bryant. Yeah, he said he needs to be more consistent. He does. If he doesn't have those drops, I think if it's a Minnesota game, he's probably got 2 more touchdowns. Like consistency needs to improve with him, and he knows that. And I think he knows there's a lot of value in being a number 1 receiver in the Big Ten. I think they would consider him right now the number 1 receiver on the team, and there's a weight that comes with that. I think he embraces all of that.
I think all in all, I would characterize it a pretty decent situation for Luke Altmyer to be in, considering Caden Fagan is lining up behind him or next to him. If you're talking about, obviously, shotgun formation, the offensive line is expected to be improved, particularly with what they brought in at tackle, J.C. Davis, Melvin Priestley. A lot of continuity there in the interior. Now, it wasn't the best of offensive lines last year, in particular pass blocking. I think the running game, which has been discussed just over and over again here in recent weeks when we're talking about what Barry Lunny Jr. is talking about, what Bielema is discussing, and I've read, obviously, your coverage and Jeremy's coverage at Illini Inquirer of the yards per game on the ground last year, stark difference between that and anything else that Brett Bielema was done in the past. So
it was the least productive of his running back room of his head coaching career.
Yeah.
By a pretty considerable margin. Injuries played a role in that, right? They lost at some point all 5 scholarship running backs to injury. The offensive line played a role. It wasn't very good. They were behind early and often. You're not running the ball when you're behind. But Caden Fagan, in the games that he was healthy and the games that he started, you saw the difference. I mean, the difference was there. Maryland game comes to mind immediately. Minnesota comes to mind. Indiana was the game that he got hurt, but he looked like a guy who could be the lead back on a Brett Bielema team, and they want to run the ball more, Derek. They know they need to run maybe not more, but effectively. They need to run the ball effectively. And I think when you hear that, everyone thinks, okay, Illinois is getting back to ground and pound. Like, no, this isn't going to be a wing tee offense, obviously, right? But they're still going to throw the ball. They know they need to be more efficient running the ball, being able to do it when the other team knows they're going to do it. All the buzzwords, right, the cliches, like that's what they need to get back to. Bart Miller was brought in to have a physical offensive line that's going to move people for the running backs. I think you pair what they expect to be a better run game with what they expect to be a solid to above average passing game, and that's why there's legitimate optimism about the Illinois offense.
No doubt about it. And I once again offer up chances to ask Joey Wagner a question, 217-359-2255 on the Max Twin City Recycling text line regarding Illini football and what is ahead for them. We can talk a little bit of schedule. We can talk about position groups that he's the most bullish on, some that are causing some concern. I've got a few in mind on both ends of that spectrum. But given the offense, to get to where I was going on that point, the tight end group, it seems like, admittedly, maybe Lon and I know Lon is really clinches into the tight end conversation of what you expect a Brett Bielema offense to be, what Iowa's been, what Wisconsin's been, and how when you have a run-first offense or just one that is usually very productive off of that, you think about the play action, you think about the easy, quote-unquote, easy passes tight end over the middle. It hasn't clicked for Illinois, regardless of coaching staff here recently, to have like big production out of that position. And with Cole Rusk getting injured, one thing I'd offer up, and I mentioned it yesterday, on the other side of the coin, if you're talking like panic, or I don't think there's that, but even just like, oh man, that's a big piece of the offense potentially gone. Like you look at Tiff Ryman last year, and even though he's a third-round pick, he had, 19 catches? So, and last year's offense put up points. Are you worried about Rusk being out? I think when you look at the fact he was an FCS All-American, right, at Murray State, he would have given you a nice option to utilize some pass to the tight end. And beyond that, I don't have a lot of maybe optimism that Arkin or Boyer is going to do that. What do you think, though? What's your take on that injury and how much it will affect this offense?
Yeah, it's concerning for the offense because of what it's very clear to me that they had a vision for what they wanted the tight end position to produce this year. That's why you go out and get somebody who's a more pass-first option, a guy who can be in those intermediate to long routes like a Cole Rusk, who is, let's face it, he was more of a pass catcher than a blocker. They brought him in to enhance that part of the tight end room. They brought in Carson Goda, a Division II. He was an All-American, Division II. Same thing, right? He's more of a pass catcher than a blocker, and he's undersized in the Big Ten. And now you're going to ask him to take on a bigger role. Henry Boyer, Tanner Arkin, those guys can get the job done at the line of scrimmage. Henry Boyer's massive. He's a huge guy. Like, I'm wondering if Bart Miller doesn't look at the scale every day he steps on, just waiting for, like, hey, all right, what do you think about tackle here? Like, he's a big guy, and he's a guy who, by all accounts, moves better than you would expect, but he hasn't shown that downfield, that intermediate threat yet. Can he do that? That remains to be seen, because Illinois clearly was trying to add to that this offseason. Tanner Arkin, a guy who looks like an NFL fullback, again, more of a guy who at the line of scrimmage is going to move guys in the running game. He was a starter in 12 personnel by the end of last season. But last year he had one catch for 1 yard and a touchdown. Like, that's not an intermediate to downfield threat that you saw them very clearly attack this offseason. Can Carson Goda step into that? Can one of or both of Boyer or Arkin show they can be a little bit more effective downfield? We'll see. I mean, otherwise, I think Illinois would just say, well, downfield, we're going to go to our wide receivers because they really like that group. So in that regard, yeah, it's a concern because I thought they had high expectations for Cole Rusk, and they recruited him to do something that wasn't already in the room. So they're going to have to find a way to pivot from around that. Nate Ginn, a redshirt freshman, he added, I think, like 25, 30 pounds since being here. He was a developmental guy, though. He's a guy who was a high school wide receiver who you thought over time could be that downfield guy, but are you asking him to do that his second year? I would say probably not. And if he does surprise, and we'll consider me wrong, but like it feels like there's a group of three players with Arkin, Boyer, and Goda who are going to need to fill that void.
Joey Wagner of Illini Inquirer with us the entire show to go nitty-gritty on Illini football. We got a lot more angles to hit on as we go along. Want to get to the defense and talk about the different positions there and certain battles that are playing out in camp. Also, we talked yesterday about the importance, how much weight should we put into that Kansas game as far as a pivotal, I'm not saying it's a make or break, but could really be a tone setter on the positive side, especially if you do come out on top. And we know that the front half of that schedule is pretty tough. So you drop that one. Purdue is another one that's a toss-up at home that you would really hope to win. And then there's fear that if you don't do well enough in those two games that you could be staring a bleak record down the face there as you sit in the midpoint of the schedule. So I want to get Joey's thoughts on Kansas, how big that game is, just kind of initial thoughts on that as we take the temperature of things here on the front end of the schedule. And we're really not that far away from that big kickoff against a ranked team coming into town from Lawrence. So a lot to do with Joey Wagner. We'll take your text, 217-359-2255 on the Max Twin City Recycling text line. Be back to talk more Illini football, and we'll play some Brett Bielema before we get out of here. So a lot to do. We'll be back. This is The Drive.
Tyler Johnson, Law Enforcement Official of the Month, Rantoul Police Department, ladies and gentlemen. He's selected as Officer of the Month, a testament to dedication, exceptional service, and a positive impact on everybody around him. Why are you good at training? They say you're very good at teaching.
I tend to apply what I learned from my trainers and just from life experience. I think I can tend to be a little bit more laid back and understanding when people make mistakes. And I don't know if it's something that just comes naturally, but yes, I have trained people for a long time, and I enjoy it.
How do you talk to somebody who's got that mix I talked about, mental, drugs, alcohol? How can you talk that into a reasonable, calmer?
Well, it poses unique challenges, and that's one of those things where time has a lot to do with it, because somebody who's dealing with a mental health crisis or with substance abuse can't understand what's going on immediately. So just talking to them as a human being, and we try to get backstory from them. We try to talk to them about family or what's going on in their life, and that will tend to sort of bring them back to be able to focus on what's going on and maybe make a rational decision.
At ABC Heating and Air, it's our promise to help you always be comfortable. Do you need rescued because you're burning hot? Do you need rescued because your air is shot? Call ABC Heating and Air at 352-5400 and let us rescue you from the heat. ABC Heating and Air, 352-5400. Can't you see you need to call me at ABC? Call ABC Heating and Air. That's ABC Heating and Air, 352-5400.
At Carpet Weavers Flooring and Furniture Gallery, we're flooring people with amazing service, great design advice, and unbeatable selection and the best prices in town. It's the perfect time to update your home with waterproof flooring, carpet, hardwood, tile, and more. Then complete your rooms by shopping our incredible selection of furniture and accessories. We also offer great financing options. Carpet Weavers Flooring and Furniture Gallery, we're flooring people.
If you're looking for a great job, Spring Green is looking for you. Full-time, benefits and overtime, outside all day, work independently. How about full health insurance and a chance at matching funds for your 401k? Yes, Spring Green, your neighborhood lawn care team, serving all over Central Illinois. It's a great job, and if you're interested, connect with S. Imke, S-I-M-M-K-E at spring-green.net. S. Imke at spring-green.net.
Solar companies are on the rise, here today and gone tomorrow. Rector Solar and Roofing family roots back 4 generations, living and working in Central Illinois, with the goal to take the confusion out of replacing a roof or adding solar panels to your home or business. With all the incentives and rebates now available, solar is more affordable than ever. Let a knowledgeable representative take the worry and guesswork out of solar and get a free quote. Discover the Rector Factor for solar. Call 217-281-7000 or visit rectorsolar.com.
Tyler Johnson, Law Enforcement Official of the Month, Rantoul Police Department, ladies and gentlemen. He's elected as Officer of the Month, a testament to dedication, exceptional service, and a positive impact on everybody around him.
Why are you good at training? They say you're very good at teaching.
I tend to apply what I learned from my trainers and just from life experience. I think I can tend to be a little bit more laid back and understanding when people make mistakes. And I don't know if it's something that just comes naturally, but yes, I have trained people for a long time and I enjoy it.
How do you talk to somebody who's got that mix I talked about, mental, drugs, alcohol? How can you talk that into a reasonable, calmer?
Well, it poses unique challenges, and that's one of those things where time has a lot to do with it, because somebody who's dealing with a mental health crisis or with substance abuse can't understand what's going on immediately. So just talking to them as a human being, and we try to get backstory from them, we try to talk to them about family or what's going on in their life, and that will tend to sort of bring them back to be able to focus on what's going on and maybe make a rational decision.
Back on the Drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Let's continue our discussion on the note of Illini football, 2 weeks from the season opener against Eastern Illinois. Joey, thoughts on Thursday night football, 8 p.m. kick? You good with it? I know it's a late night for you, riding after availability and all of that, but you're not dreading it, are you?
No. No, you don't have to work Labor Day weekend. Spend some time,
for sure.
Spend some time around people, have a good time, get your work done. Ideally, by the time you wake up around 11 o'clock on Friday, it'll be a late night, Thursday, working into probably 3 or 4 in the morning, and then to watch college football, like to absorb the rest of the college football world on Saturday and Sunday. And I think there's a Monday game to open up, and it's a good weekend to open up. So I am excited about that. I think it's good for Illinois. I know there's going to be people who don't like a Thursday game, and I understand the travel constraints if you're not in Champaign, if you're trying to come from Chicago, from St. Louis, from wherever you're coming from.
Your kids got school the next day.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good point. It is true. You
give me 10 years, and then I'll be on here like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
You and Lon are just going to scream for hours on it. It's going to be great.
Well, I don't have to worry.
But the reality is, listen, I mean, TV eyeballs carry weight. And for Illinois to be on a Thursday night, it's not going to work for people. And people would have every right to be upset that they can't make it to the season opener. But it's good from a promotional standpoint, I guess. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's the right word to kind of have that spotlight on Thursday night. And then it's a lot of night games really to open up. Then you get Kansas at night. It's a 6 o'clock game. The following week, Central Michigan, I believe, is during the day. Nebraska Friday night. I mean, that's if you want eyes on your program nationally, it's a good way to do it. It's just I understand that it does come at the cost of people who would be traveling across the state to get to the Memorial Stadium.
Sure. It's part of the benefit of playing week 0 when you did, right?
Absolutely.
Trying to get more exposure, be one of those games, less options for people on the watching weekend to tune in and watch Illinois football, get that brand out there for sure. And as the train goes by, they're a day early to pick up Jimmy Sebeski and take him to West Lafayette. But he will be having his last show here tomorrow as he gears up for Purdue. But anyways, admittedly, with 2 young kids, I may not make it out to Memorial Stadium on opening night for an 8 p.m. game.
You might have to get coffee to get yourself through halftime at home, huh?
I'll be all right there. I'll be good there. I'm usually staying up around midnight or so. I told you before the show, some of my late night adventures are self-inflicted. You have time with the kids, and then it's like, all right, I can go to bed now, or I can actually fire up my PS5 or watch a show that we haven't watched.
Fire up the PS5, sure.
Which, got to get Hard Knocks in there. My wife and I are watching The Bear. I don't know if you checked that out at all on Hulu. Just finished season 2. It's really good.
A lot going on.
Oh man,
a lot going on, man.
That will give you anxiety. Just your heart will be pumping just sitting there on the couch watching.
Oh, exceptional show. It's a really good show. Then I realized that like sometimes when I think our job can be a little fast paced, I'm like, nah, this is nothing. This This is easy, but yeah, that's a tough one to watch late at night when you're trying to wind down.
Exactly.
Then you fire up NCAA and maybe
go.
throw an interception or two, and you're wound back up and you're angry, and
especially when
and then
you
it's
make
1 a.m.
when you make the choice. Like, you know what? I told you guys I'm 8-1, not to brag or anything. 8-1 with Air Force on All-American.
Who'd you lose to?
Wyoming. We lost.
Those are the worst.
Went to Laramie.
Yep.
It wasn't a good Wyoming team, and we lost by a field goal. I got a little overconfident. We played Fresno State. It was the top team in the league, and we kicked their butts. So I'm like, all right, Oregon State's coming up next. They're ranked in the top 15. We're going to turn up the Heisman, see what happens. We got our teeth kicked in. We lost our bowl game to Louisiana Monroe on Heisman. And then starting year 2, we went back to All-American.
That's a good call.
The goal of video games a lot of times is to have fun. Go ahead and make fun of my skills if you want, but we're sitting on All-American for now over there at the Air Force Academy.
That's good. I just recently won a gym right outside linebacker recruitment over my friend, a close lifelong friend, so that felt pretty good to ruin his day and let him know who's really running the Fun Belt here in recruiting.
The Fun Belt, I like that. Yeah, no, I mean, I have never, admittedly, in previous games, I've been so much of an online player or a quick play player. I haven't dove into Dynasty. Recruiting is time consuming, but it's fun in that how in depth it is and just how it progresses. And you just like, all right, I'm in a battle with this. And then you do the scouting thing, and all of a sudden you get the green little gym, and man, feel like you know something that other people don't. It's great.
I got kind of obsessed with recruiting early. I started one with Toledo. And you're like, all right, you're going to get this kid after this visit. Like everything's good. So you'd sim the game thinking we're 8-1. And what a tough loss to have recruits on campus for.
Oh, boy.
Then you just kind of get caught up like, okay, next week. And then you find yourself simming like 3 weeks of the season. It's like, all right, you can't do this.
I will mention that I think enough people out there, sometimes I give myself pause. I'm like, should we keep talking NCAA football? Is there enough people that care? We even have a thread on our board on Illini Inquirer. It's been pretty active. A lot of people firing it up and doing dynasties. One thing I learned, cautionary tale for anybody that's like finishing up their first season or going to do one. At Air Force, we needed like 7 corners. So in the transfer portal, had to recruit multiple of that position. If you bring them in on the same weekend, they get mad though.
Yeah, they don't love that.
They don't like
believe it or not.
2 of the same position. You bring them both, and I'm like, hey, we bring in 2, we get one of them. One's probably going to go elsewhere. They both were mad that, like, all right, I'm here and he's here and I'm here. Like, they were mad. So neither of them came to our place.
Come a long way from the Oscar Sheboy, Drew Timme joint visits at Ubben.
See, I feel like I should have a leg up of being on the inside of covering recruiting a lot, but I'm still out there making apparently rookie mistakes.
That's a terrible mistake. You shouldn't have done that. Dan in Urbana is going to tie this back to normalcy here. If there's one gym on the Illinois roster, who would it be? That's a very good question. Brett Bielema talked about Colin Dixon today, the wide receiver from Ohio. He was a 3-star recruit committed to Wisconsin, reopened his commitment last season after Paul Chryst got fired. I'm really intrigued by him, and maybe it's just that might be like too front of mind just because we heard his name, and he's been somebody I've been kind of monitoring a little bit more this training camp and seeing where he could fit in and how he fits in a receiver room that's pretty good. But he was a little bit of a running back in high school, also a receiver. He's a really talented kid, very strong, like kind of built like a running back a little bit, would have some versatility. So he's somebody who really intrigues me offensively. And then defensively, Tanner Heckel, another late addition, 7-man football. He's a true freshman, got here in the summer. Brett Bielema said at one point, I think during his signing day, he jumped out of the pit for triple jump. He's an incredible athlete. I don't know how much that can turn up in 7-man or 8-man football, I guess is probably what he played. But he got to campus, and he put up some numbers in testing that were really, really intriguing. And let's be honest, Illinois has a nice little history running here of late addition safeties, Matthew Bailey, Matt Krasevich, and I think they're hoping Tanner Heckel could be a guy who kind of follows in that line, and you might see him on special teams not before long, excuse me. So he would be a guy on the defensive side of the ball that I think could fit that bill.
Man, Devin Witherspoon would have been like a quadruple gem.
I
0-star and had like
shows up to campus at like 14 pounds, and he was late, so everybody else is in pads, so they obviously look a lot bigger. And then there's Devin Witherspoon, and he really his freshman season he had those moments, and obviously it went from there. But that would probably be a gem in NCAA 25.
Let's answer a couple more of the questions on the Max Twin City Recycling text line. 217 says, for early cupcake games, do coaches ever look or leak strategy to their opponents to get a better look than they could get from a regular practice? Would you give EIU some plans you had so that you can see what they put together to try to stop you? He or she says, could see this being more relevant in basketball. I know football shouldn't be feeling too comfortable even against EIU. It doesn't seem like Bielema, who even to the media is trying to hide a lot of stuff in terms of, and again, I'm not blaming him for that, would try to, all right, here, EIU, here's some plans we have, or here's some looks we're going to give you. Like, you don't want any chance of making that closer than it should be. That's something that did happen, like, to use the basketball example, the Brad Underwood Bill Self game, the exhibition game that they had. Now, if we started seeing any of those pop up in football, then obviously you could do something like that. But for a game that counts, I don't know about that.
No, running the risk of losing to Eastern Illinois week 1 and the headlines
would be catastrophic.
I think you would avoid that. I would like to see, along those lines, I would like to see some sort of exhibition, whether it's a straight up fans in the stands exhibition game, or if it's more of a joint practice, 2 or 3 practices like you see in the NFL. I think there's a lot of value in just seeing somebody different on the other side and kind of seeing how guys ramp up to see maybe some of those freshmen, right, who you haven't seen in that college setting, to just get a chance to see somebody who isn't in your locker room. That's something I could see where you would say, hey, whatever your ex team, Derek Piper State University, you run this well. Like, we want you to come in and we'd like to see how we stack up against what you do. But I think beyond that, running the risk of losing a college football game to a non-conference, to a game that you're paying Eastern Illinois to show up on campus and play football, that's playing with fire a little bit.
I like the joint practice idea. That's definitely something, because basketball, and look, there's less injury risk. Not that it's saying that it's 0 and 0, because it's not. But
Luke Goody.
Yeah, right. Good point. That's progressing forward, where now you're going to see more of those like charity exhibition games. And have seen, I think, Arkansas already be aggressive in lining up 1 or 2 of those. I think they've scheduled 1, and there's been buzz of them trying to get Kansas on their exhibition schedule. So you might see more of those here coming up. But did you see the practice clip? There was a joint practice between I think it was the Cowboys and Rams, and the defensive tackle for the Cowboys ends up, it's a drill where he goes into 2 linemen for the Rams, and there's some staffer. I mean, he's probably like I don't know if he's an equipment guy. Somebody for the Rams is like playing quarterback, and the dude gets through the 2 linemen and then just shoves the guy playing quarterback, and then there's almost like a fight breaking out there. What I'm getting to on that is, who would you not want to mess with? If it's a joint practice, we know those things usually turn up.
The Krutz brothers.
Okay.
That is the answer. There is not a second answer. It is the Krutz brothers. And if you had to pick one of them, you would go James first and then Josh.
All right.
There is no second place. I guess third place. Those 2 are the runaway winners.
I like it. Would you take them in some kind of like blind, them against some other team's biggest, baddest dude? Would you be good with those brothers coming out on top?
I think so.
At least they're going to be the most eager to fight that fight for Illinois, is what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, Aaron Henry said, I did a story on James Krutz, and he said, if I'm going in a fight, I want that cat on my team. All right.
I like it.
You got it.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's get to an 851 earlier today. It says, Lon had me down talking about Illinois yesterday. We were on the note of the Kansas game, kind of just overall optimism or feel on that game and how things could start to roll and progress through the first half of that schedule. Lon was getting some flack for kind of playing the angry old man and get off my lawn. Lon said,
that doesn't sound like Lon.
No, definitely not. Now, he usually is Mr. Optimism on season projections, win totals, that kind of thing. He's going a little bit of a different route this year. We haven't tabbed exactly what his final record prediction is going to be or what ours are going to be, but he did say he's lower on this squad than usual. Maybe it will play in a different direction where they shoot above that ceiling that he puts there. But the 851 says Illinois beat Penn State on the road with an injured Art Sikowski. If you recall, he had a shoulder injury before the arm break. We also lost to Indiana, the 8-4 year. I feel like we need to not put so much pressure on the Kansas game and give these guys a chance. It's a long season. What do you make of that, Joey? I teased it before the break in the first segment. Where do you stand on the Kansas game, its importance, and just overall feel as we sit a few weeks out?
Yeah, I would say two things. One, that is a huge game. It's an obvious chance to show that you're improved over a year before. It's a ranked team. You get a chance for a ranked team to come to your house, and you get a chance to beat them, right? And like there's a lot of value. Given how that game went a year ago, if you win that game, you can say, this is what we did last year. This is what we did now. See, like this is a better team. Then you're probably staring down a 3-0 start, given Eastern Illinois before that, Central Michigan after that. And then it gets tough, right? You go to Nebraska. That's a winnable game, but at Nebraska on a Friday night, that's going to be a tough environment. At Penn State, I would think you're going to go into that thinking Illinois is not going to win that game. Versus Purdue, if you lose to Kansas, Purdue becomes like a massive game. And
I know
absolutely
you love people calling
must-wins.
games must-wins, but
it
seems like a must-win.
If you lose to Kansas, you could get out of Purdue being 2-4 with Michigan and Oregon coming up next.
Yeah, right.
And then it makes October and November, that push for a 6-win season, then it becomes really difficult. So Kansas, I mean, that is a massive game. But to Stexter's point, and I agree with this, if Illinois loses to Kansas, probably a little too soon to jump off ship, right? Like I understand there would be disappointment to that because of an opportunity that you had in front of you at home. Kansas has a new offensive coordinator. They still have a Jalen Daniels who's going to be in contention for the Big 12 Player of the Year. They've got a lot of talent offensively. Devin Neal at running back. Maybe their lines would be some weaknesses somewhere that Illinois could exploit, but there would be an opportunity missed there, and then it gets really difficult beyond that. So, it's massive. I would just caution if they lose that game, it's not worth completely freaking out and trying to go knock on the door at the State Farm Center and see when you can get in to see what's going on across the street.
I'll be doing that. So if anybody wants to join me, I'll
you say that,
start that
like 10 people would show up with you at the State Farm Center right now. But it's a huge game, Derek. It really is, because the point you can make and the way you can kind of set yourself up for that bowl contention, because November becomes a very bowlable path, I guess, late October into the month of November.
I know we've still got some time where some of those early season games really to get a temperature read on, what squads around the league, other teams on Illinois' schedule really look like, especially when you have some turnover at some key positions. I need to go and buy my preview magazine. I have yet to do that. So on my side of things, I've started to listen to some podcasts, to read some things. The Athletic, I've been reading their stuff that it's out there kind of just as a general broad overview to try to brush up on things as we're about 2 weeks away from college football. Week 0 coming up a week from this weekend. But we talked baseball yesterday. I don't want to go down that path. I know you're an angry Cardinals fan too.
I don't get to watch them. I'm just angry from afar.
But Jimmy, I'm going to use one of Jimmy's lines to piggyback into this answer. Jimmy said, it doesn't seem like the Cardinals have that magic anymore. You don't watch them and feel the mystique of the Cardinals or whatever it is. They're a powerhouse and you're not. They're above you and whatnot. It feels like maybe even, I think in general from their track record recently, but even especially head-to-head battles, it's not really there, I don't think, between Illinois and Nebraska. Like when Nebraska came to the Big Ten, I expected that to be, in the West, that's going to be immediately up there with Wisconsin and Iowa to battle it up for the West title every year. They're going to eventually be maybe a powerhouse in the Big Ten. It's worked the opposite of that, really. They fought to even get to a bowl game and a lot of times have not done so.
Scott Frost.
Yeah, Scott Frost. I got to find that drop on here. Do we still have it?
Scott Frost!
Can never get rid of that. At Nebraska, are we assuming too much of that game? Like, all right, on the road, Matt Rule, year 2, sellout, that Illinois is just automatically going to lose that game? I mean, Dylan Raiola is supposed to be the real deal, but he's still a freshman. What do you think about that? Are we being too quick to chalk that up to like, all right, if you lose Kansas, then yeah, you'll win Central Michigan, but Nebraska is definitely a loss? I'm not saying that it's like written in stone already, but what do you think about that?
I don't think it's definitely a loss. I think there are 3 games that right now you would feel comfortable predicting Illinois to unquestionably lose, right? If you're going to say Penn State, Michigan, Oregon.
Yeah.
Like those are three games that Illinois is not going to be favored. I think smart money says, hey, they're probably going to be underdogs. They're going to lose those games. Nebraska's not in that category for them. Nebraska's in the coin flip. category. It's a tough environment, absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
Going in there with the stud quarterback and a second year with Matt Rule, who is a good college football coach. He's worked some miracles at some programs to get them back in contention. Illinois is probably not going to be favored going into that game.
No.
But I don't think that's one that I would say put it with Penn State, put it with Michigan, put it with Oregon as a loss. So, I mean, that game could – I mean, that could give this team momentum, right? And you would need – if you lose to Kansas, that game takes on a big importance because you can't be 2-6 or 2-4 going into Michigan and Oregon. That's tough. That's really, really tough for your postseason hopes.
On the bright side of it, if you beat Kansas, that's a potential winnable game in Game 4. I mean, especially if you win that game and then, let's say the first three go about as perfectly as you can imagine. You blow out EIU, you beat Kansas, and then you win convincingly against Central Michigan. Illini fans will be telling themselves they can go into Lincoln and win that game.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Yes. Unquestionably, they would be telling themselves that. And then you go to Penn State, it's going to be tough. But that Purdue game, you could look at a pretty good turnout.
Right.
Right? If you can go that road, I'm with you. The second and fourth game are the two biggest games in that first half of the season.
Yep.
They just are.
Yep. Now, I'm waiting for Nebraska to break out. I don't know if this is going to be their quote-unquote breakout year. I think they'll be better. Even last year when Nebraska wasn't very good, they came to town and smacked you. It was an ugly football game, but Illinois was disastrous in that one, especially.
Special teams.
Yeah, that's right. I remember leaving at halftime with my son. He was like, "I'm out of here." After the first quarter, he was running the what do you call them? The stairs or the ramps up there. So that's a personal side story. All right, we're due for a break. We got a number of other texts to get to. 217-359-2255 on the Max Twin City Recycling text line. Hit us up. Questions on Illini football, comments, anything you want to pick Joey's brain about regarding training camp. We'll get to all of that and some Brett Bielema as we go along. This is The Drive.
When it comes to finding a reliable vehicle, look no further than Sarah Champagne, your trusted automotive destination. They carry a lineup of top brands, including Honda, BMW, Subaru, GMC, and Buick. And they're not just about cars, they're about people. Their team is dedicated to providing you with trustworthy service and dependable vehicles that fit your lifestyle. Experience the difference at Sarah Champagne. Visit Sarah, S-E-R-R-A, champagne.com.
Hi, I'm Tyler Weaver, president of Carpet Weavers Flooring and Furniture Gallery. It's time to come home to Carpet Weavers. We don't want you to just like your new floors. We want you to love them. From waterproof floors and carpet to furnitures and design advice, we've got a team of experts on your side. We'll get you the best price and the best quality products. And complete your home with furniture and accessories. Buy it all with free financing too. Come home to Carpet Weavers, where floors, furniture, and family meet.
Solar companies are on the rise, here today and gone tomorrow. Rector Solar and Roofing family roots back 4 generations, living and working in Central Illinois, with the goal to take the confusion out of replacing a roof or adding solar panels to your home or business. With all the incentives and rebates now available, solar is more affordable than ever. Let a knowledgeable representative take the worry and guesswork out of solar and get a free quote. Discover the Rector Factor for solar. Call 217-281-7000 or visit rectorsolar.com.
Find the look you love for less at Kelsey Furniture in Tuscola. Explore their wide selection of quality pieces, from cozy sofas to exquisite dining sets from all the top name brands. With personalized service and expert advice, their team makes finding the perfect piece effortless. Create the home of your dreams with Kelsey Furniture in Tuscola. Exceptional customer service and the best prices since 1959. Stop by today or visit them online at kelseyfurniture.com.
Ow! A spring just hit me.
Mom, the couch is broken again.
It's about time we get rid of that clunky couch and look into buying a new one.
What about 2 men in a junk truck? Their professional moving team does a great job assisting with downsizing, home renovations, and clearing out old items you need hauled away.
Wow, it sounds like it'll make much more space in this house once the couch is hauled away.
I just pulled it up on my phone. You can schedule an appointment online at 2meninajunktruck.com.
Join Fighting Illini football as they kick off the 100th anniversary season in Memorial Stadium on Thursday, August 29th at 8 p.m. versus Eastern Illinois. Start your Labor Day weekend early with the whole family. Enjoy the Family Fun Zone in Grange Grove, plus fireworks in the stadium. Great seats available for as low as $15 for the Illinois football home opener, Thursday, August 29th. Get tickets at fightingillini.com.
Finishing up hour one on the drive with Tane Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. A few more texts to get to on the Max Twin City Recycling text line. 309 says, does Illinois have any QBs they're targeting in the next few years? Joey, I'm putting you on the spot here, but any that you have in mind regarding quarterback targets? They have a current commit, Petty, right? Trey Petty?
Trey Petty's here. Carson Boyd in the class of 2025. They're also going to let Jershawn Newton, brother of Johnny Newton, begin his career at quarterback. I'm not sure that he will end his career at quarterback. He screams linebacker / defensive back to me, but they're going to let him come in, give it a whirl at quarterback. Michael Clayton, a Florida quarterback in the class of 2026, 3-star guy, would be a name to know. They tried to get in early on now Lincoln Way East quarterback Jonas Williams. He committed to Oregon. Obviously, that
not a bad spot.
That is not a bad spot to go be a quarterback. Michael Clayton would be a name to know in the class of 2026.
Gotcha. Lance says, I understand being on Thursday night to get on TV. I don't understand why it's 8 o'clock. I do not believe there's another Big Ten game on Big Ten Network that night. Is it so our West Coast friends don't have to watch a game at 5 o'clock if it's 7 p.m. locally?
I don't know if it's about that. I don't know that. There's a lot of West Coast interest in Illinois and Eastern Illinois.
Sure, right.
I'm actually trying to pull up the TV schedule. What is that? Thursday, August 29th.
Yep.
Good. Let me pull that up here.
I don't know. Is there another Big Ten game that night?
They say Howard and Rutgers.
Yeah.
Oh,
Howard and Rutgers
That's
would
at
be
5. That's weird.
Yeah, it's 6 o'clock Eastern time. That's right.
Okay.
So that would pave way into Illinois and Eastern Illinois. I understand that would not be ideal. I mean, 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock's not an ideal kickoff.
Yeah. No, it's not. Definitely not. And you get a lot of basketball tips at 8 p.m.
North Carolina, Minnesota as well.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. That one's
a
on
7
Fox.
o'clock game.
That's a Fox one. Big Ten Network is Rutgers or Howard at Rutgers.
A couple other ranked teams are on that day too. Missouri plays, Kansas plays.
You can't do the whole like BTN alternate type of thing with those games.
It defeats the purpose of a Thursday night, right? A Thursday night TV.
I guess, yeah,
special.
kind of like
Big
the
Ten
standalone.
Plus.
You're right. You're right. Fair enough. Peacock? Where's Peacock when you need him?
Probably doing another Purdue game.
Let's put it on.
Driving me crazy, man.
Let's do the old Levitard show thing. Let's put it on the poll. Would you rather have Illinois play at 8 p.m. on BTN or
anytime on Peacock,
or Peacock at 6 or 7? Let's call it 7.
On a Saturday or on a Thursday?
On a Thursday night.
Okay.
Peacock at 7 or BTN at 8 on a Thursday.
I think from an exposure standpoint, Peacock is not going to help you out because, like, for people who are non-Illinois, Eastern Illinois people watching that game are going to be people who are channel surfing. Like, they're probably not going to go into Peacock, even if they have it, and watch that game.
It's fair.
So, and I honestly think the Thursday thing might be a little overrated now because, I mean, a few years ago when Purdue had it with Penn State for the opener, and on top of that, Penn State's a high-profile team, like, there was only a couple games that Thursday, and even last year, the Nebraska-Minnesota game, there was only a few games. Now there's a healthy amount of games on that Thursday. So I really don't know how much Illinois is benefiting from this. Not to kind of crap on and rain down on this, but
hater.
Yeah. I'm just saying it might not be as good as people think.
That's fair. I mean, you're going to have, to your point, Minnesota, North Carolina, which is going to be a game of, Minnesota's favored by 2.5. Should be a a tight ball game.
Colorado's on at 7 as well on ESPN, so I think a lot of people are probably going to be tuning into that.
Yeah, a lot of people. North Dakota State Bison fan that night. We've mentioned that in recent.
Yeah, I'll be rooting for them
in recent weeks here. You did mention that Utah is going to be in action. They'll be on ESPN Plus. So I don't know. Maybe then that your point then sways it back to maybe Peacock's not such a bad thing. If you have it, if you don't have it, then you got an entirely different viewpoint on that. But anyway,
the only problem with Peacock, really, I mean, I have it, right? So if you don't have it, then that's the biggest problem. The hard is just channel surfing, right?
Yeah.
You've got to completely switch apps to channel surf on one TV.
Yeah,
and that's
a pain.
If we're talking real first world problems, right? We're talking about switching apps, and obviously a lot of people don't have it, and they're finding their way to get it. But it's just not functionally the most fun if you're trying to go from a couple close games to one another.
Just take the day off. It's early enough in the school schedule that, hey, you know, they're probably not too advanced in the curriculum. You got your kids. You're sick that day. What have you?
3 years from now, Derek Piper is gonna be like, my kid not missing a day of school here.
Hey man,
except for
I can't. My mom called me in sick for the Big Ten tournament almost like every year, so I can't have that.
How did your name not spread around there? Like, hey, I'm telling you, next teacher, like, listen, Derek Piper's gonna be gone in March.
March, second week of March, he's gone. He's just sick every year. I don't know.
I'd always we'd leave for spring break early, and that would usually be the first day of the NCAA tournament. So that was always fun.
Yep.
Getting that. I did miss class that Friday after the Purdue night game on Thursday. I will say that.
I don't blame you for that. Don't blame you.
I do miss being in school with the teachers who'd be in March Madness, and it's like, yeah, well, math can hold on a minute. We're going to put the NCAA tournament on in here, and that's like, I'm not old, but streaming services weren't prevalent. You had to really work.
March Madness Live when that was the only thing.
Work to get those games on TVs in classrooms.
Yeah. Well, speaking of being mad, Kyle would be angry at me for not catching a break here. So we will do so. Continue some Illini football talk. Brett Bielema met with media today. We'll get you that before we're out of here. All right, we'll be back. It is The Drive.
You're listening to WSJK ESPN 93.5 Tuscola, Champaign-Urbana, your home for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Last 3 addresses. Your info is in endless places that could accidentally expose your info to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity's stolen, they'll fix it guaranteed or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code CLAY at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Hey, checking in?
This is not just your flu shot appointment at Walgreens.
Yes.
This is getting your entire family vaccinated in one trip.
Hey, Mom?
And a snack on the way out. Get flu shots for everyone in your family. Together. Schedule appointments online today. This is wellness made easy. Walgreens.
Vaccine subject to availability and for ages 3+. State and health-related restrictions may apply.
A minor becomes the first person charged with rioting after recent violence in Britain.
A 15-year-old British boy is the first person to be charged with rioting following a wave of violence that swept across the UK in the wake of a stabbing attack that left 3 young girls dead. Misinformation spreading online that the suspect was a Muslim asylum seeker, then spurring violence against mosques and places housing asylum seekers, leaving police officers hurt in clashes with demonstrators. More than 1,100 people have been arrested in the far-right violence, many of them charged with violent disorder and sentenced, but none of them until now charged with the more serious offense of rioting, which carries a maximum penalty of 10 years.
Fox's Lillian Wu. The Hamas-run health ministry says more than 40,000 are now dead in Gaza after 10 months of war with Israel. Talks on a ceasefire and hostage deal resuming today in Qatar with U.S. negotiators among those back at the table. A flight makes a sudden diversion when the pilot admits he's not qualified to land.
Fox Business reports an Alaska Airlines flight operated by SkyWest was forced to divert from landing at Jackson Hole Airport last week when the pilot revealed he wasn't certified to land. A Reddit user who says he was on the plane explaining the pilot told passengers, "I'm really sorry, folks, but due to me not having the proper qualification to land in Jackson Hole, we need to divert to Salt Lake City, Utah." The plane landing safely and another pilot stepping in. SkyWest citing lack of the correct paperwork for the diversion in a statement to Cowboy State Daily. Jackson Hole Airport's director noting the runway is at an elevation of nearly 6,500 feet, with pilots needing an additional qualification to land. Kristen Goodwin, Fox News.
Wall Street rallies, the Dow gaining about 555 points today, the NASDAQ more than 2%. Elisa Brady, this is Fox News.
It is The Drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Derek Piper, guest co-host Joey Wagner, along with us today, talking Illini football. Speaking of streaming services, now we did have Landon weigh in on the Max Twin City Recycling text line. Said, no Peacock, I'll watch on BTN at midnight. I think that would be Lante's vote as well, and plenty others out there who do not have Peacock on their list of streaming services. Maybe you have no streaming services. So
I cannot blame Landon at all. There are a lot of streaming services.
There's too much. There's too much. Do you have HBO Max?
I have it, yes.
You've been watching Hard Knocks.
I have.
Were you
I need
upset?
to see my enemies. I need to see my enemies before the season.
If you're not familiar, I'm sure a lot of people are. Joey Wagner, big Packers fan. Certainly, you probably haven't seen enough to where you're like, oh, I'm scared about this. The Bears, there's been a lot of narrative out there that the Bears with the McCaskies are doing way too much to control what gets put out, and that's why there's been no cursing on the show. That's why they've limited some of what's been released via training camp. Been a big focus on your old friend Jonathan Owens, understandably so. In the especially
that was pretty cool.
The episode 1 with Simone and everything. Maybe too much of this last episode with his play because he's going to be a backup safety, special teams guy most likely. But I don't know. I can't have too many complaints, I guess, because it's better than not getting a chance to see an inside look at my team. But I've been a little underwhelmed on the whole. Some things have been cool, but a little underwhelmed mostly for Hard Knocks. What's been your outsider take on that?
That I hate that Caleb Williams might be good and he's got a lot of talent around him.
Yeah, I like
That's
that.
what I hate.
I like that.
You know what I really thought, because I feel like, Hard Knocks, part of the reason it's so appealing, outside of seeing a behind-the-scenes look at all of this, is they do a good job of attaching you to fringe roster guys, guys who, by that 5th episode, you're like, oh, you're going to get cut even though you know he did or didn't get cut before it comes on. I thought we'd see more Keith Randolph, because Keith Randolph is very much in that neighborhood of a fringe roster guy. He's got a huge personality. I thought to this point, and maybe that'll show up later on, but I thought he had kind of the whole combination of he could be that guy that they try to attach you to, just given his story of being an all Big Ten guy, and injuries last year really slowed him down. He's very good in front of a camera and a microphone.
No doubt.
I thought that would be one that would be kind of building by now.
That's a good point. No, I haven't thought about that, and that would be something that obviously locally would be very much enjoyed and talked about, and hope for Keith's sake that he will be a guy that at least is going to make the practice squad. Maybe we'll make a push there for a roster spot. We'll ultimately see. I think that selfishly I would like, and look, Hard Knocks, like you said, a lot of times they do focus, or at least a big part of their plan is to get you on get you attached to these guys that will be up for the cut line, and then obviously you tune in to see if they make it or not, and those can be tough conversations where they sit down with Matt Eberflus, sit down with Ryan Poles, and you have those certain aspects. Selfishly for me, I want to see as much Caleb Williams inside feature as possible. I'm saying I haven't got a healthy dose of it, but maybe have a camera ride shotgun with them to to the start of training camp or go to his house or something like that. I'm not saying it's not been in the works for one of these final episodes. Follow Keenan Allen around. There's a weird narrative out there that some people apparently think he's up to 230 pounds. He's had 20 pounds in the offseason. And maybe we need to have a camera make sure he's not going to Portillo's every day or Lou Malnati's, which we stopped at.
You just see you and I right there
right
in front of Keenan Allen.
Our window seats there right before the Terrence Shannon draft party. That was delicious, by the way. And a great spot near the river. I want to get back there.
Did you realize Caleb Williams was so animated? I feel like every time the camera, like his face is on camera, it's like, there's some sort of gesture. I didn't realize. No. I guess maybe we only saw him with the helmet on, but he's a pretty animated guy.
He is. Funny exchange between him and Rome Odunze with the whole like fishnet thing. Like, oh, you going clubbing type of thing. I enjoyed that. I didn't know his voice was like a little R&B soft, not to say it's a bad thing or anything, but I didn't know that about him until now. I've enjoyed him. I'm especially enjoyed the throw on the run to Cole Kmet in the Bills preseason game. So you don't got too much to worry about because Jordan Love looks still looks pretty good as he did in the second half of last year. And was listening to Colin Cowherd yesterday and how he's like, Green Bay is just different where, man, their transition, you don't hear any like, they miss Aaron Rodgers type stuff, which traditionally, if you have a Hall of Fame quarterback like that, future Hall of Fame quarterback, there's going to be that lingering. Obviously, when Tom Brady left New England, that thing went down the chute in a hurry.
It continues to be.
Yep. Green Bay is not looking like that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I recognize the luck and patience involved in that, and I hope it works out, and I like what they have around them. But I would like to see them on Hard Knocks, but I also feel like it might just be kind of like, kind of know what you need to know, right? Jordan Love. Seeing more of him, I think, would be fun to learn a little bit more about his role in taking command of that offense. And the time to do that was probably last offseason when you were truly, from a storyline standpoint, when you were truly replacing Aaron Rodgers. But it's been fun. Maybe Hard Knocks isn't for everybody, but our girlfriend likes reality TV and she likes football. So you got a nice little mix here. So you go right from Giants off season into Bears training camp. I don't really do the in-season stuff. Kind of a lot going on for some of us.
I would say,
in the middle of the season, but it's a fun.
My wife was telling me on one of our road trips last year for basketball. She's like, I've been watching the Dolphins in-season Hard Knocks. I'm like, sounds cool.
Yeah,
Dolphins,
we've been watching Pick Your Interstate for 6 hours.
Or 6 a.m. flight out of LaGuardia.
Watching the beers
shout out
disappear.
To Jeremy Warner for that. Yeah, well, we do that too. So shout out to Jeremy Warner for that side of it. No doubt.
We have strayed.
It's good. It's all good. We got to do some of that to break it up.
One tear is rolling down Lon's face right now wherever he is.
I know.
He's so
this
proud
is what he likes.
We're able to do this.
This is what he's about. So I don't even know where I was going next, ultimately, but I guess we should circle it back to Illini football here. Heath's putting your feet to the fire, Joey. Joey, why do beat writers continue to rate Minnesota higher than us when Bielema continues to beat them and they have a new quarterback?
Minnesota's just been more successful than Illinois over the last 6 or 7 years. Yeah, Illinois has beaten Minnesota with Brett Bielema. And I do have quarterback questions for Minnesota. I looked at the kind of the unofficial, official. The Big Ten doesn't do a football poll, but the beat writers all get together. And to his point, Minnesota 12, Illinois 13. Feels like a coin flip. Like if you would have flipped those two, if you would have had Illinois 12, I don't know that anyone would have been up in arms. But it's just recent history, right? And I understand it. Minnesota's consistently in the postseason or has been of late with PJ Fleck, even if maybe it's not the level that it had been in the past. I do have questions about them this season. I think Illinois got a much better quarterback situation on its hands than Minnesota does. But it's probably some of that's just recent history, right? People, if you're ingrained in covering, I don't know, Penn State. I'm not trying to take a shot at Penn State writers, but if you're ingrained in covering one school,
USC,
USC, Ohio State, Michigan. Like if you don't cross paths that often with Illinois and Minnesota, some of it might be. I don't want to say lazy, but okay, hey, Minnesota's been in the postseason. They get the benefit of the doubt. Consistency gets benefit of the doubt.
Yep.
This season, I could see where you would say, wait a minute, I don't agree with that. Illinois. I really like what Illinois has offensively. I really like Luke Altmaier. I have questions about that same thing in Minneapolis. But it's just a recent history thing. It's some of that, right? And that's not to say there's no thought process that goes in to any of this, but you do take into account recent history.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely. Because of its place in the schedule, it's not getting the same amount of early hype of like huge toss-up game, but playing Minnesota at home is definitely going to be one of those.
Is that later? That's right. It's part of November.
Right after Oregon.
That's right. That's
November
a
2nd.
Huge stretch of the season. That is the stretch of the season. This team's bowling. They've feasted in that stretch. You home against Minnesota, home against Michigan State, at Rutgers, at Northwestern. If you can get into that stretch with 3 or 4 wins, you feel pretty confident about your chances to go to a postseason if something has probably gone astray, right? But that final fourth that's a bowl. That's going to tell you if this team's going to go to the postseason.
Absolutely. Defensively, want to pivot there as we push along here, and you think about the Kansas game, obviously will be an immediate test, immediate kind of show on returns of whether Aaron Henry and that group have taken the strides forward that it needs to take. And I was thinking today, Joey, is kind of an idea of how to frame this show, of just thoughts on, like, if you're going to be bullish, if you're going to be optimistic, what do you know about this team that you like? What do you question about this team that could end up being a reason why they disappoint, or another reason why they miss a bowl game yet again? And I find myself within the defense hitting on both of these sides. Let's go positive first. And I'm not saying it's going to be an awesome position group. I would be interested in your thoughts on this, but the secondary can't be worse than last year. It can't, because you get Terrence Brooks coming in. You get a healthy Matthew Bailey. Torrey Cox, I don't know what his impact's going to be in terms of what level, but at least he's been a proven FBS
He's minimally
corner.
better than any proven depth you had a season ago.
Right. You get Miles Scott, who's going to have more experience now on the back end. And ultimately, you hope for the guys that played last year, and there were pretty much everybody that played last year took their lumps to some degree, some a lot more than others. The secondary has to be better, and that would be a reason why, if I'm chalking up reasons why this season could be better, will be better than last year, or this team will be better than last year, that would be very firmly in there.
Yeah, we'll get to the outside linebackers, which I think is the most talented position group on the defense here in a second, but the addition of Terrence Brooks, there's no question where he slots in on this team. He is your number one corner who excels in the things that Illinois wants to do, in man coverage and press coverage. That is where he is best on the football field. He was highly sought after for a reason. He's got playing experience. To have that position taken care of comes with so much value to know what you have there. And I sneaky like moving Xavier Scott outside. He's got some experience at outside corner. He played that nickel role last year. The Florida Atlantic game against LeJontay Wester, that didn't go well. Wester now at Colorado, where he's expected to be a big part of the offense. He's an All-Big Ten honorable mention, as I recall. I'd have to double-check that now that I mentioned it.
I think you're right. Yeah. I think you're right.
Now, moving him outside, I think the other part that comes with that is moving Tyler Strain inside, into that nickel, into that star role, where he's probably a little bit better suited. He is, I think, 5'10". He's listed at 190. He is a massive guy. He's strong. He's physical. He's fast. He's not tall. And you saw that against Indiana last season. They picked on him. You saw the Wisconsin play that he said he watches over and over in the end zone with Will Pauling. That maybe wasn't even as much height as it was just, hey, go get the ball here, right? You've got to do that. I think he fits better in the slot. So I like that trio and what it can be. And then you look behind them, and that's where you wonder what Caleb Patterson, who's now in his second year after being a junior college transfer, what Jaheim Clark, now in his second year as a redshirt freshman, second year for sure. I can't remember if he took a redshirt last season or not. Chase Canada would probably be the backup nickel. Torrey Cox, as you mentioned, where does he fit in? So I like the options there. I like that you have guys at your boundary corners like Terrence Brooks, like Xavier Scott, who have played a lot of snaps.
You mentioned prior to us discussing the secondary that you would put probably near the top of your list, especially defensively, the outside linebacker is a reason to be bullish on this squad. Seth Coleman, if I'm not mistaken, 7 sacks in the final 6 games of last year.
6 sacks in the final 6
games.
But now here's the thing with him though, consistency.
Yeah.
Because the first 6 games, I think he had 4 total pressures, and I know he's on NFL radars. And someone had brought up to me, well, consistency. Like,
sure,
maybe they just saw the back end of last season, which was a really good season, and spearheaded by that 3-sack game at Maryland on the road to lead to a big road win. But he's the guy who's been productive. He's long. He's quick twitch. He's kind of what you want out of an edge rusher. If he can be consistent, and I'm not saying play your whole season, like expect the whole season of him to be like 6 sacks in 6 games to close it out, but they need consistency. They need disruptiveness out of him. And Gabe Akis, right? I mean, he's a huge guy, a guy that Brett Bielema at Media Day said, hey, if he plays like we think he can play, he might not be here next year to bring to Media Day, which is pretty lofty. And I thought we all thought he would take that sophomore jump last season after a really, really good freshman year where he kind of came out of relative nowhere to put on that freshman All-American season. He didn't have a bad season last year, especially by sophomore standards, 4 sacks. But everyone kind of thought like, hey, could this be a guy who flirts with double-digit numbers? And
right.
And now it's time for him to take that next step, and those two to be the anchors, the disruptors, playmakers of this defense.
I think Akis, I was digging through some of his PFF stuff, wasn't as bad as what I would have expected because it was more of a quiet season, I think, in terms of like the counting stats. His pressures, I think he had 16 pressures. His overall rating was in the low 70s. I think it was pretty comparable to Seth Coleman in general. Now,
it just didn't meet the expectations that we thought, like, hey, freak of nature outside linebacker, sophomore, go wreck the Big Ten, which is kind of what people thought, understandably so, after what he did as a freshman.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that I was like, and I'm not saying he should be entirely satisfied with what he put on, on film, on paper last year. He can do more.
And he said that. He said that in the spring.
Is there any reason that I think maybe it was just all speculation. I don't know that it was ever said by Brett Bielema or Aaron Henry, but there was thoughts late last year when it was a quieter season. Is he going to move inside? Is he going to be somebody that plays, with his hand on the ground? Has there been anything said about why that hasn't happened, or was it just all kind of us on people on the outside wondering about it and it just didn't take place?
Yeah, I think it was there was wondering because he did look like maybe he was getting picked on some options at that with maybe a lack of quickness, and then Keith Randolph was hurt. So you did see him one game put his hand down and go kind of into that hybrid defensive line position with Keith Randolph, and he looked really good. So obviously that kind of doubled down like, wait, he could be pretty good there. I think now you would look and see that some of that depth we thought they had at outside linebacker, that long-term depth. Calvin Smith has transferred to Purdue. Mason Moragan is out for the season. Josiah Knight was the guy who they were excited about last recruiting class, who had some academic issues, and he's now at Mississippi State. So now it's like you kind of need him at outside linebacker, right? And that's where he wants to play as far as I'm aware, and he's had success there. So I still think there could be some packages, some personnel that would include him putting his hand on the ground, if that means getting another inside linebacker out on the field. But they believe in him there, and he's shown that he can be productive.
Coming up next, let's talk causes for concern defensively, because certainly it was a group that was not nearly good enough to go where that team hoped to go, and what would have to happen on the weaknesses side of things to get cleaned up. We talked about secondary. There's another area that I'm a little concerned about. I wonder where Joey stands on that regarding this team and what Aaron Henry has to make sure, or those that are going to be in those positions, do to make it not something they get exploited with, and something we're not continuing to talk about as the season lingers. We'll tackle that coming up next. Continue to get to your text, 217-359-2255 on the Max Twin City Recycling text line. Brett Bielema will get you some of his availability from earlier today as well. Before we get out of here, stick around. It is The Drive.
Here's another home improvement insight from Kramer Siding and Window. New roofing and siding are a winning combination that can instantly change the look, feel, and function of your home. Our Kramer Siding and Window team takes pride in being an Owens Corning Platinum Preferred contractor, able to offer a best-in-the-business 50-year warranty. Pair it with preservation siding in your favorite style and color, and your home will be a showstopper. Start today and save 10% on roofing and 25% on siding. Call us, click on kramersiding.com, or visit the showroom in Champaign.
In an ever-changing real estate market, it is so important to work with experienced agents like Russ and Nick Taylor with the Taylor teams at Taylor Realty Associates. They have the knowledge and expertise to get your home sold for the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time. Trust the experience and success of Russ and Nick Taylor with the Taylor team at Taylor Realty Associates. Give them a call today at 217-355-0700 or visit them online at taylorboys.com. That's taylorboys.com.
Kelsey Furniture in downtown Tuscola sells Tempur-Pedic beds. What's it like?
I'm going to tell you right now, Stevie, that thing is the best thing I've ever slept on in my life. My wife and I both have said we've never had better night's sleep. And the people at Kelsey's were fantastic. Brian is the guy that helped us. You know, as much as I did my research, he has a world of knowledge about beds themselves. Oh, man, it's like sleeping on a cloud, man.
Kelsey Furniture, downtown Tuscola.
At Carpet Weavers Flooring and Furniture Gallery, we're flooring people with amazing service, great design advice, and unbeatable selection and the best prices in town. It's the perfect time to update your home with waterproof flooring, carpet, hardwood, tile, and more. Then complete your rooms by shopping our incredible selection of furniture and accessories. We also offer great financing options. Carpet Weavers Flooring and Furniture Gallery, we're flooring people.
Illini pizza fans, Jets Pizza has been making the best pizza on the planet for 40 years. They've always been committed to quality, like hand-pressed dough, fresh mozzarella, and sauce made from Mama Jet's secret family recipe. All baked to perfection. It takes more work, but take one bite and you'll get it. Right now, enjoy 3 types of pepperoni with the new Triple-Roni Pizza for just $16.99. And this is a limited-time deal, so visit jetspizza.com. And don't forget to flavorize your crust for free, like their famous Turbo Crust. Jets, better because it has to be.
You have money laying all around your house. You just don't know it. And no, I don't mean selling your great-grandma's good china. I mean all the old metal items you don't want to use or get rid of. Don't pay someone to haul it away. Bring it into Max Twin City Recycling and get paid to have it taken off your hands. They love new customers and are more than willing to walk you through their process step by step. Come check them out at 2808 North Lincoln Avenue in Urbana.
Starting it over is what we do at Max Twin City Recycling.
Airlig Plumbing Solutions. For your kitchen and bath remodels, sump pumps, maintenance plans, and even licensed backflow testing, Airlig has you covered. Your local plumbing contractors for industrial, commercial, and residential jobs can provide plumbing services, repairs, and installs with a quick turnaround by calling or texting 217-722-9499. Send an email with your plumbing issue and contact information to info@airligplumbing.com.
Very happy and honored to have Dr. Abraham Kocherl, cardiac electrophysiology, OSF, Heart of Mary in Urbana. What is AFib?
Yeah, so atrial fibrillation is a heart rhythm disorder, and it's actually the most common heart rhythm disorder that needs treatment. So about 6 million Americans have it currently, and it's expected to increase to about 15 million by 2050. So it's a growing problem. There are lots of things that lead to atrial fibrillation, and this includes diseases like diabetes and hypertension, sleep apnea. Other factors that lead to it are an excessive alcohol and tobacco use, being overweight or obese, and being sedentary. You know, generally it's an older person's disease. Generally, if you have other heart conditions, it's worth looking for. So that there's a condition called heart failure, which commonly is associated with atrial fibrillation. So hopefully, if you have one of those conditions, those patients are being seen by a cardiologist, and that cardiologist is paying attention to the heart rhythm and keeping an eye on things to look for the development of atrial fibrillation.
To learn more, visit osfhealthcare.org.
Back on the drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Let's continue to talk some defense. Aaron Henry's group on that side of the ball. We discussed the secondary, talked about the outside linebackers. I think it's worth mentioning, I tabbed him as somebody that we're probably not talking enough about, and I'd be interested in Joey's take here on maybe who that player might be. But when we went through this as a show, I said Dylan Rosiak, which felt like a little bit of a cop-out answer because he did lead the team in tackles last year. But it just seemed like whenever we addressed the defense, whether it's concerns or even some guys we might like, he hasn't been brought up a whole lot. I liked the flashes last year. There were some things he can clean up, missed tackle-wise, and maybe in coverage too. But I liked him as a player last season and feel like going forward he's somebody that can be active in the run game, and they're going to need to be better at stopping the run than they were last year. So what do you think? Rosiak, Kenenna Odeluga there in the middle, and just maybe who your answer would be on that side of things.
Yeah, Rosiak got a lot better as the season went on. I thought Kansas exploited the lack of speed at linebacker for Illinois, and
definitely.
Tariq Barnes' snaps dwindled as the season went, and Dylan Rosiak and Kenenna Odeluga ended up taking those spots. I'm with you. I think Rosiak's a little bit overlooked. I get why. I mean, I understand 2022 you had the secondary.
Right.
And Rosiak really wasn't a big part of that, if we're being honest. Last season, Johnny Newton was so dominant up front that, of course, he got all the attention, right? And then there were issues in the secondary. And then Rosiak just kind of went along, and not the flashiest guy. It seems to me this defense, you don't look at linebacker as like the flashy spot. The safeties make a lot of plays when this defense is doing what it's supposed to do. Johnny Newton made a lot of plays. We expect the outside linebackers to make some of those game-changing plays. So linebackers just, the way this is set up, at least by my read, are just kind of steadily racking up the tackles. What Rosiak did, and he and Jake Hansen have known each other forever from the same town of high school in Florida. Rosiak and Lane Hansen, the long snapper at Illinois, Jake's little brother, are close friends. So it's kind of a cheap resemblance there, but Rosiak punches the ball out like Jake Hansen did, and he had 4 forced fumbles last season. It's just, he's steady, and I think there's another step for him to take. I think he can impact the game more, but he probably is. He's voted a team captain today. He probably is being overlooked a little bit just because that position doesn't lend itself to those gaudy stats that a free safety or a strong safety within this defense make. And Kenenna Odeluga primarily has been kind of that overhang linebacker, the get after the quarterback type of guy. I thought he showed a little bit more versatility last year. Guy I'm really interested about, we talked about him a little bit kind of jokingly earlier, Pipes, is James Kreutz. I think someone's got to absorb those snaps that Tariq Barnes had last year, and I expect Kreutz to be in that rotation. They do play 3 linebackers at times. I think there's more sets you could see them with 2 linebackers on the field this season. Kreutz is really interesting. He's fire breather, tenacious, everything you would think about the Kreutz kids. He is that. I think it's time. It's his 3rd year in the system. It's time for him to kind of be that rotational linebacker. Just not a group that kind of sets off a lot of fireworks, but this defense goes when they're steady, they're consistent, and then if you can make a play here or there, even better.
One area I am concerned about, Joey, and we teased this before the break, while I mentioned secondary being an area where I'm at least knowing and feeling pretty strong about there will be an upgrade.
Cautious optimism in the secondary.
That's a good way to put it. And if it is a significant upgrade, then obviously we can get potentially much different results. Defensive line, now.
How come?
Yeah, you're missing the law firm, right? Keith Randolph, Johnny Newton.
Denzel Daxon was under the radar, and he signed with the Dallas Cowboys. Really good nose guard for Illinois last season.
Good call on that. I know that in doing some reading, and I know you talked to him, I think, back in the spring, Dennis Briggs, a guy coming over from Florida State, when he's been healthy, he's been pretty productive and had a nice bowl game against Georgia last year. He's somebody that's certainly capable, a veteran. Was he in his 7th year of college?
He was teammates with Brian Burns his freshman year at Florida State.
That's wild. That's crazy, man.
Brian Burns. He just got paid a ton of money by the New York Giants.
Unbelievable. But it seems like a position, just based on my reading on it, seems rather thin, and just in general wonder about what that's going to look like in the absence of that law firm up front.
Yeah, you've got to replace Johnny. Replace Johnny Newton. It's impossible, right? He's as good as he is. That if you zoom out on that last season's defensive line, Keith Randolph was dealing with injuries. Bryce Barnes, I thought, was a nice rotational guy, but it wasn't quite like it was in 2022, where they were pressuring the quarterback at the levels that they were. In part because Keith Randolph was injured and his production just didn't match what we had seen in the past. So, like, on the whole, it's not as daunting as you think to replace what the defensive line did a year ago, but what I think is going to be really difficult for Illinois to replace is just the game-changing moments that Johnny Newton created. And they happened often, and kind of some of them you could see building up a little bit. Then you come in the first half against Minnesota, and he has a sack on his first play after he was suspended for the first half for that targeting call that I know a lot of people are still pretty frustrated about. So Dennis Briggs is a guy that they've been very, very high on since he got on campus. He's played in 49 career games, 10 starts, 76 tackles, 9 tackles for a loss, 5.5 sacks during his career. You just got to keep him on the field. He's had some injuries. That's why he's in college for his 7th year. It's because he's had some injuries. But when he's been healthy, he's been a productive player. If you can keep him healthy, I think that would be something you could see taking a leap. Brett Bielema continues to just sing the praises of T-Rod Edwards. He's now in his 3rd year with the system. He's going to slide into that nose guard role that we've seen defensive line coach Terrence Jamison develop fairly well here at Illinois. You got the best out of Calvin Avery, who had a cup of coffee in the NFL, Rod Perry in the same conversation, Denzel Daxon. They think T-Rod Edwards can be that next guy in that mix there. It's not a sexy position, nose tackles, nose guards, whatever you want to say. You're eating up blocks. You're kind of taking up space there. You open the road for Johnny Newton to go make game-changing plays. So those two are kind of the two big names there. But look, they're also betting really big on sophomore Alex Bray. He's plays with a very high motor. He was under-recruited in high school out of Missouri. He had a ton of production, though. He's very, very productive, former wrestler, guy that they're putting a lot of stock into this year. You could probably stand to add more weight to play in the Big Ten, but they clearly believe in him. If you believe that what you hear from here and there, it's the reason Anthony Johnson, the Youngstown State transfer, came to Illinois, left in spring ball. He has since made pit stops, by the way, at Mississippi State and has now ended up at Pittsburgh. Was because those first-team reps were going to Alex Bray. Mm-hmm. Now, Anthony Johnson would be somebody depth-wise you would still want on this team because he would play those snaps. But I would expect those 3 to be your starters this season, and raise a big bet in the same way that they bet on the secondary a year ago. You just hope, if you're Illinois, that the outcome is better than what it was. Beyond them, Gentle Hunt, a Florida A&M transfer in his final season, explosive, understands leverage, not a very big guy, probably somebody who's going to play nose. Auburn transfer, Nietzsche Sledge, totally opposite. Hunt was so productive in college, undersized. Sledge is a mountain of a man who's just raw, needs a little bit more time. Ezekiel Holmes, former outside linebacker, has moved into defensive line. Jeremiah Warren, a sophomore, redshirt freshman, is probably going to get some snaps this year. So it's a little bit more unproven up front. And I understand where there would be some cause for concern there, because what if Briggs gets hurt? What if Bray isn't ready to take that step? Then all of a sudden you're kind of looking around and you're scrambling a little bit.
Big Def on the Max Twin City Recycling text line mentioned, as he has before, Dennis Briggs Jr. is his biggest X factor in terms of a player going into this season. Could see why that is the case, certainly. Need to get you some Brett Bielema, who spoke to the media today. We're going to find out some answers before too long as we see this team in action 2 weeks from today. But the latest update from training camp, here is your Illini head football coach.
Scrimmage, by NCAA rules, we're only allowed 2 of those, so we knew there was a lot going into last night. Had full use of coach to player, had sideline technology up and running for the second time. We've obviously made some changes because of the rules. All right, we're actually using the game day locker room of old. We're not using the Smith Center at halftime anymore, so we've kind of gotten used to that transition. Did that last spring as well as our first scrimmage, second scrimmage. Really kind of took a different approach to the game last night, as far as we kind of had a declared group of ones that really went back and forth during the course of the game, one offense to one defense. One special teams, converted back and forth throughout the first half, involved the second unit with special teams in the second half, so that our coaches could leave the field. So if our one offense was out there going against the defense, that when they came off the field, then those coaches could go to the sideline and work communication, sideline technology with our one offense that just came off, because obviously during the course of a game, everything is one way. So a lot of really good prep work last night, really good execution. Got over 150 plays of really, really good work. Stayed injury-free, which was a huge deal, and a like going into really our last 2 weeks, last week and a half, because we got a Thursday night game where our team is physically, but also mentally. Had some really good examples of execution last night. So excited about that. Also announced captains last night. Really don't know where these always go. One of the things I've done as a head coach, some teams take different approaches. We've always been player selected, so our players vote on it. We kind of have a method that we used. Offensive players vote for offense and defense. Defense votes for our mainly defense, but they get a crossover vote, and have those 6 players represent us. Really have everything. I think first time in my career I think we have 4 guys with remaining eligibility after this year, so 4 underclassmen captains. I think in college football it's kind of the way it is. Offensively, Kreutz had by far the most votes on the offensive side, was a guy that ran away with it. He has great presence, great awareness. Really, really excited to have him in that role. His growth from a year ago to this year is very, very apparent. And then Pat Bryant offensively too, just speaks volumes. I think last year he was in a room with Casey and Isaiah, and since January a year ago to have him step forward and put himself in that position is pretty impressive. And then a guy that I wasn't surprised with when we saw the ballots, just Tanner Arkin is a guy that goes about his business. Some coaches said some things about him in front of the team in a team meeting that was kind of a unscripted view of what Tanner is, and our players all resonated with it. I think that might have actually been a big part in that. And then defensively, the biggest vote getter, Dylan Rosiak, a multi-year starter, a guy that plays every snap like it's his last. Just super impressed with him to get on the Buckus Award list earlier in the day. I always put up whenever our guys are nominated for national awards, I put the video graphic that Brett and his staff puts out, and just to see the reaction from our guys for that was probably a good indication of what was coming. And then defensively, we had the next 2 guys, Seth Coleman and Miles Scott. Both those guys literally almost dead even. I think 2 different stories, right? Seth Coleman's in his 6th year, a guy who was recruited by the original staff and has transitioned to a really good player for us. And Miles Scott came in as a non-scholarship player on the other side of the ball, has now positioned himself as, in my opinion, one of the better players, not only in our team, but hopefully in his conference, and represents everything good. So excited about the leadership from that group. We also have a leadership council that is a big part of that. And then, I think guys just naturally develop leadership as they go through things. And the good news was also a lot of other votes from other people. Health-wise, Matt Bailey, we kept him out a little bit, but he's full go rodeo heading into the week. Henry Boyer was out concussion protocol. He's back in it. Won't have any issues. Last night, a couple things, soft tissue, but nothing extreme, nothing really, really big. So James Kreutz is 100% clear. Josh Kreutz is still coming back. Expect to have him back sometime next week. And other than that, we should be good to go.
But with Matt Bailey, is that a maintenance thing, or is it something new? It is. Okay.
Yeah, he back in maybe week 1 or week 2 had kind of a soft tissue, re-aggravated it, and then just where he was strength-wise, we just didn't want to put him in a position to go out there unless he was full strength. So he was actually cleared. We just pulled him out of it, and then the reason he was held out is we still want him. He does like when we do any Eastern Illinois or Kansas prep work, he stays involved with that, but he's not fully engaged in all the other activities. Plus, I'm trying to develop some depth. That position behind him is something that's really wide open. Guy last night, Sabor Kareem, really had a really, really good scrimmage, and then Mac Resetich was actually one of our MVPs on defense that had a nice play, nice interception, so a lot of really good stuff.
That's a good segue into my net. Like this depth at safety, we know Miles, we know Matt, but what are you seeing behind those guys?
Probably 3 guys jump out. Mac Resetich for sure. Sabor really kind of backing up Matt Bailey, but a different skill set. CJ is probably a guy that has played himself in that role. Ben Clausen, another guy that has been there. Demetrius Hill also had his probably best week last week. And I would say there's probably 6 guys that are kind of vying for those 4 spots. But really like that. And then at corner, Xavier Scott playing a corner. Obviously, Caleb Patterson has got the most time in our program. But you look at Brooks, like he's got a number of playing experience even though they weren't here. Torrey Cox, same thing, a lot of playing experience even though they wasn't here. And then a guy that's really probably been impressive, Jaheim Clark, coming back from where he carried over last spring to where he is this fall has been pretty impressive.
Coach, during your time as a head coach, have you seen guys be named captain and kind of just take off beyond what you probably thought they could do. You know what I mean? Kind of spark something. You have stories about guys that really loved being that kind of respect from their teammates.
Yeah, I think it plays, and then I know there's some of that released on the social. I don't know if the social media things out there. I gave all those guys a chance to speak afterwards.
Okay.
And I think it's heartfelt. I did say I gave these guys a week warning that we were going to vote for them on a certain day. I told them, because I think it's a lot of thought. I want guys not to just come in. I said it's not a popularity contest. It's not the best player. It's not the oldest player. It's about who represents who we are and what we are. And I probably, to be honest, have seen kind of both worlds, right? I've seen guys that maybe weren't expected to be captain, have been voted, and it raises them to a different level, or guys that maybe expected to be captain and weren't, and it raises them to another level as well, just because they feel they got more to prove. So it's probably, probably a push depending on the kid, but it's always neat to see their reactions.
What's Donovan Leary's kind of deal?
Yeah, Donovan, no issue, no. He just really got a sore arm. And what I wanted him to see was, like, I wanted him to be, going 2 weeks into the game is about, and so he was totally cleared, fully cleared. Just sat down with him and made a decision to rest like 4 days. We thought we could get a window. So even like today, we can't go. So of these next 4 days, there's 2 days on, 2 days off. So we kind of use guys in a maintenance plan to try and get guys, whether it's a quarterback. We've done the same thing with D lineman, O lineman. If somebody's got something that's bothering them a little bit, even though they're fully cleared, I think it's important to let those guys recover and get ready for a full season and trying to limp through it.
On that note, though, are you happy with what you're seeing out of Kirkland and Trey when they've been able to get some of those reps?
Well, Luke had his best performance since I've been here last night. I went, I think he was 21 of 26, if I'm not mistaken, or 21 of 25. Kirkland had his best performance by far in the time that he's been here, really. And he, for the most part, was going against stiffer competition. He was going against our one defense, so he was out there, and he did a really, really nice job of managing the game, handling and understanding where the ball needed to go, avoiding negative plays, everything. Trey Petty was also very impressive last night. So I think those two guys in general took a step forward. But yeah, again, I've said it before, like going back to last spring, I like this QB room. It's the most talent we've ever returned since I've been here as far as across the board. So as long as they keep making steps forward and keep getting better at the things that we ask them to, I think it's all good.
Those completions go to pass catchers. How did they look?
Well, they didn't go to non-pass catchers.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Just like,
did anybody stand out?
Yeah. Wide receiver, running with Luke and that crew, right? You had obviously PB, Zakari, Kanari, Wilcher, Malik Elzy, Colin Dixon, and Kapka Jones. So we had about 5-6 guys rolling at the wide receiver position, and probably the two plays that stood out to me were a long hit to Colin Dixon. Zakari had a nice couple plays. Pat always has a couple in there. Had a couple nice intermediate routes on early downs to a bunch of guys. Tanner Arkin had a nice couple plays. And then our running backs caught the ball extremely well. So I think the big thing for us is to distribute. It's not just going to go-to guys that people that traditionally get looked at and defended. I think it's now a little bit more broad-based approach. And I'm really excited about that wide receiver room. I've said it before. I think that group continues to grow.
How's the kicker competition? How's David looking? What can he take? I say competition. You can correct me if I'm
David.
wrong. And how's he looking from last season?
Yeah, David probably in the last, I would say 10 days has been kicking the ball extremely well. Chow has also come in and done very well. Obviously, the A&M transfer, he's a very accurate long hitter. Breezy has been breezy. So as far as the kicking, now we've done very little live kickoff stuff, but they've hit the ball in live team situations, so we can chart that, mark that. But David and Chow especially, those two guys got big legs, very accurate. They've been almost identical in the field goal race, so we got a good battle going on there. And then punter, Hughes been hitting the ball extremely well, but case in point, even like what he mentioned with Donovan, Hughes had a little bit of a sore soft tissue, so I've seen this guy kick a lot of good balls for us, or punt a lot of good balls, so we just kind of backed him off, literally took him out of practice for about a 4-day window and let him recover, and went out and hit the ball extremely well last night.
Did last night solidify at all to you who you want the defensive green dot to be in a couple of weeks, or are you still kind of trying to work that out?
No, I think the green dot by position, we know what we're doing, but who's in there depends on what scheme and what we're doing. So the rule reads you can only have one on the field, so really, but we'll actually have 10 helmets that have green dots on them on Saturday, so you can literally go put one in the box, the next guy out goes. Could be situationally, it could be depending on the game plan, right? There'll be a lot of guys that maybe do things perimeter that we want to have someone on the big picture. You get play against teams that play in a box, you might want more of it be in dot. So I don't think there's a set person that becomes that by nature. That's not how the NFL works. That's how most teams play.
Four of the 6 guys named captain are juniors.
Yeah.
Most of the names you've just listed off here are juniors. It's very junior heavy. Is there anything different about coaching a junior heavy roster? Like, seems like 3 times the juniors as seniors kind of thing.
Yeah, I think a little bit. Still, these guys are all COVID, right? Like technically, we got quite a few guys that wouldn't be seniors that went COVID. We got guys that are juniors because of COVID. However you want to say it. I look at J.C. Davis, who, comes to us. He's a 2-for-1, so he technically has 2 years to play 1, but obviously he's a starting tackle for us. But it's just college football, I think, right now. I appreciate the question. I understand the numbers, but I do like players that I've had a lot of experience with, right? And then the next best thing is if you don't have a guy returning from your roster that has a lot of experience, is to get someone in your roster that has a lot of experience. And I think that's what we've added. Like, Zakari's been a true joy. Just he's got a lot of football knowledge and he understands things. And obviously had a previous tie-in with Barry, but J.C. Davis' experience, Melvin Priestley from scrimmage 1 to scrimmage 2 was unbelievable last night. Just his overall demeanor, approach, nature. Even though they're young, Aiden Lawfrey's been through it. He's been through 2 springs and 2 falls with us now. He's really had an impressive camp last night. Josh McCray ran for X number of over 700 yards his freshman year and then had 2 kind of season ending. But even though he hasn't had a lot of playing experience, he's been in our program a long time. So really impressed with him. But yeah, I think it's more about time with you. But if not with you, have they had it somewhere else, and how well do they adjusted to you? Tanner Arkin, here's a guy that, I think, I know we beat some people out, in the recruiting process, but he wasn't a highly portal acquisition. And I tell you, there'd be a lot of people who'd like to have Tanner Arkin on their team right now. He's just very, very, the things we always talk about, tough, smart, dependable. And for us, he brings tremendous value, not just offensively, but in quite a few phases of the kicking game as well.
Do you have all 10 of your helmets now? I know you said you only got, 7?
Yeah, we got them all now. Yesterday we were full functionality for sideline technology, coach-to-player communication, and then also we went into the locker room at halftime, so our guys were using, the iPads at halftime, which is such a different game, right? There's so many things that we're preparing for this year in college football. I don't think the outside world realizes it's such a different world. Like one of my coaches who up in the box, who's been a head coach, like he's literally, in between series, he's watching every play. And you get to watch every call, right, made and the result of it, right? So you get to see exacting moments on how people are aligned, what they're doing. There's also that opens up a whole different thing, right? So for the first time in college football, whenever you have a negative play happen on Saturday, right, like you'll get to watching film on Sunday and you're like, ooh, we got away with one here, or maybe they didn't come back and get this, maybe they didn't see it. Like you're literally going to have the ability to see that 30 seconds later, right? And the value, or however you want to say it, on the flip side of it, if it's a negative thing towards us, to know that our opponent is going to see that immediately, if people are capitalized on that, is a really, really big deal.
Barry talks about with the communication part, just maybe finding a sweet spot where between talking too much or not talking enough. With the other technology, like how do you want to approach that? Maybe showing too much or not showing enough? Well,
I think it's a feel. I'm glad we had 2, and we're actually going to do it next week on the mock game as well. Every team is allowed 2. We're doing a 3, and then we do it every day at practice. We're trying to maximize it. And I think even Barry, from scrimmage 1 to scrimmage 2, he's not going to say everything to you guys, but I witnessed it last night, right? Like he was just much better in his understanding of when that 15 second was going to come in. We had a way of signaling when that's going to happen to him, which really helped him out, right? And then Luke efficiently operated a lot better. And then I think there's all kinds of gamesmanship within the game, knowing like a lot of times when you come from the sideline, it's 40 seconds, but a lot of times it's 25, right? So when you come from the sideline at 25 seconds, to know you only have 10 seconds is a big deal, right? Versus 25, it's at 40. So there's a huge deal there. And the process just comes through working. I'm glad we sent them to pro camps. We talked to coordinators that had been first-year coordinators in the transition they went to. So I think a lot of recon that we did before is hopefully going to pay dividends for us.
So you have a lot of experienced transfers in there. Anybody get votes for captain amongst those?
Those were the 3 on offense and the 3 on defense. But it's interesting you say that. So the next vote getters on offense were Luke, The next guy after Luke was Aiden Lawfrey, who's not a transfer. It was Luke, Aiden Lawfrey, and there was Zy Chrysler. So Zy and Luke, even though one was a junior college, one was those were our next two big. And then yes, on defense, T-Rob was our next, transfer. Briggs was our next transfer. Xavier Scott was our next, and then Gabe Backus, right? So who's only in his third year in our program. So I mean, I don't think guys. It's even like when I see Tanner Arkin, like I don't think of him as a transfer, right? Because this is our third, basically fifth semester. T-Rod, like there's nobody, in my opinion, that's had as big a jump from a year ago to where we are right now than T-Rod Edwards. And I think it's, even though he was a Northwestern transfer, I don't really ever see it that way anymore. So I think it's kind of to Robert's point, it's just kind of the way college football is right now. And a lot of times we'll be sitting in a meeting and I'm like, God, what year is he? Is he like I say it all the time, like I literally had it again this morning, like what year and what does he have remaining? Because if you got a guy that's dealing with a possible position change, like how many years could he try this other position? Everything from A to Z. So it's just and then next year we're going to go to a roster of 105, right? So we've done some things even this camp where we're servicing one another, very similar to what we did last night. So a little NFL perspective on, your team is out there performing what you want them to do offensively and defensively, but how do I get the team that's going against them the best personnel to go against, right? And I go back, whether I watched Tom Brady run a look team offense or if I was watching some of our best defensive players go against our offense on a defensive look team, like that's the model that's coming down, and it's a byproduct of that.
My understanding, I said you used the locker room in the stadium. Like, what was the locker room thing you opened up talking about? Maybe not using the Smith
well, ever since I've come here, we've always used the Smith Center. So one of the great advantages of that was you get dressed in the locker room you've been every day, right? But because sideline technology has changed and you could take it in the locker room, then I made a decision. We're no longer, we'll use the Smith Center. So when we come over here on game day, we'll get dropped off right here. We always do a little walk. We'll go in Smith Center, and then whenever, let's say our players are taking the field at an hour out from kickoff, they'll now leave an hour and 10 out. They'll walk to the game day locker room, which I don't know what that is called. It's what they used to use, right? And drop off whatever they want here. They'll go down on the field, and then after pregame, they'll go to that locker room, go through half, and they'll go to that locker room at halftime, and then we'll come back up here. But our player, especially I would say anybody in the 250 club or higher, which includes me, right? Like it's like you don't have all the traffic. We literally, in my opinion, probably had 5 minutes. It's a 20-minute halftime. We probably take 2 to 2.5 minutes coming and going. So it was already then so now it takes literally 45 seconds to get off the field to our locker room. So and now you have that technology and it's smaller, right? We won't have, if we dress 100 players, we would never have 100 in that one. We'll only have the 75 travel. So it's just a lot more efficient way, I think, to use it. And then there's a whole area that our coaches now have for offense, defense. So good news is it's going to be here for all of our home games. Bad news is on the road you don't have near as much luxury as you do have here at home.
When you're buying a battery, it's important to look beyond just the price and make sure you're buying a quality battery. So when you're buying one from the big box store, make sure you ask the question, what's the date on this battery? Is it dependable? Sometimes the big box stores have batteries that have been sitting on the shelf for years. Or you can just come to Interstate Batteries, outrageously dependable, and buy your battery from the people who only do batteries. Interstate Batteries at 2504 North Madison, Champaign, way out there, but totally worth the drive. How much is dependable worth to you? Interstate Batteries open 6 days a week.
BMW, Buick, GMC, Honda, and Subaru. Welcome to Sarah Champagne. We can handle all your car repairs on site, including paintless dent repair, bumpers, windshields, everything in between. We have an amazing selection of new or pre-owned vehicles to choose from. Shop from home and buy online or reserve your vehicle before it hits our website or dealership. Sarah Champagne is home of the Sarah One Price Promise, delivering an honest and transparent buying experience. Hurry in or shop online at sarahchampagne.com.
If you're looking for a great job, Spring Green is looking for you. Full-time, benefits and overtime, outside all day, work independently. How about full health insurance and a chance at matching funds for your 401k? Yes, Spring Green, your neighbor